Even before dawn spread its gray fingers across Beverly Hills, the Forrester estate pulsed with an unease that no thick velvet drape or mahogany door could keep out. For Eric, heart heavy with nostalgia and a craftsman's certainty that old patterns could be sanded smooth and refinished, had resolved that Brooke and Ridge should be restored to the luminous pedestal of years past. And every corridor of the mansion had begun to echo with deliberate invitations, strategic luncheon menus, impromptu design consultations timed so that Brooke's laughter arrived in Ridge's ears exactly when his guard was lowest. Yet across town in a Santa Monica condo that smelled faintly of lavender tea and sleepless sweat, Dr. Taylor Hayes, celebrated psychiatrist, stared at the clay-colored ceiling and felt a brittleness spider through her own mind, because she knew too well how familial persuasion could masquerade as benevolence, knew too well how easy it was for the loving patriarch to become puppeteer, and she could not silence the memory of past years when Ridge's affections slipped through her fingers like surf retreating from sand, leaving chill emptiness where warmth had been. So she lay awake night after night, pulse tolling louder than any bedside clock, vision vibrating in the dark as worst-case scenarios unreeled with clinical vividness, Brooke leaning into Ridge's shoulder under Forrester Creations showroom lights, Eric's proud half-smile sanctioning the reunion, staff applauding the resurrection of the dynasty's golden couple while she, Taylor, was gently escorted from the narrative once more. The mind that had guided countless patients back from despair now folded inward, driving her to the bathroom cabinet where a prescription bottle of blue tablets promised chemically purchased silence, and at first she told herself it was temporary. A brief crutch until Ridge clarified his commitment, but each sunrise found her hand trembling toward the bottle sooner, dosage creeping higher as phone calls from Ridge grew shorter, as text replies landed colder, because Eric's subtle orchestration kept Ridge distracted with photo shoots, marketing retrospectives, fabric symposiums, all featuring Brooke, radiant, indispensable, leaving Taylor to scroll social feeds and measure in real time the widening gulf she could neither leap nor logically refute. Cumulative nights of fractured sleep begot days of cognitive static, first a simple stumble over the edge of a rug, then a slurry hesitation in conversation with a patient, then a full blank during a keynote where her practiced eloquence faltered into an alarming stutter, sweat purling above her lip while a ballroom of colleagues pretended not to see. Humiliation metastasized into dread into deeper dependence on the pills into physiological mutiny, until coordination deserted her like a fleeing ally. Car keys slipped through numb fingers, coffee sloshed onto case files. Sentences broke apart mid-breath as if synapses had frayed. Steffy, juggling the sorrow of losing Liam and the terror of Kelly's precarious health, tried calling, but Taylor's responses were disjointed, vague, punctuated by nervous laughter that chilled her daughter more than silence would have. So on a drizzly Thursday afternoon, Steffy drove across town, heart galloping, and let herself into the condo with the spare key, only to freeze at the sight of her mother slumped sideways on the sofa, arm dangling, complexion the pale ash of driftwood, half open. Eyes rolled skyward, a single capsule crushed beneath her cheek like some sinister tear. Shock throttled Steffy, but training from countless family crises propelled her to action. 2 fingers at Taylor's carotid found a pulse slow as a wounded drum, respiration shallow, whistles almost lost beneath the hush of rain against the windows. Blood pressure reading on the paramedic monitor minutes later anemic and sinking, so the EMTs declared a code red, ventilated on scene, drove lights blazing through afternoon traffic while Steffy clutched her mother's limp hand and recited childhood memories as if words could tether a soul to a faltering body. At University Hospital, the trauma team flooded Bay 3, atropine, epinephrine, naloxone in rapid succession. But when labs returned, they painted a grimmer mosaic than overdose alone. Creatinine skyrocketed, BUN off the chart, GFR negligible, kidneys flooded with toxins they could no longer filter. Fluid backing into lungs, producing the rasp of impending respiratory arrest. Dr. Martin, nephrology chief, explained with encyclopedic calm that prolonged use of benzodiazepines in high doses, compounded by dehydration and unmonitored blood pressure fluctuations, had accelerated chronic kidney damage to stage 5 end-stage renal failure, and even if emergency dialysis were initiated tonight, Taylor's cardiovascular instability might not endure the strain. Her best hope a transplant, yet her vitals too brittle to survive the waiting period. The words landed like mallets on glass. Steffy's knees buckled, her scream a raw fracture that echoed down sterile hallways, while outside in the lobby Ridge, summoned from a marketing summit, Eric had insisted he attend with Brooke. Arrived breathless to the sight of his daughter sobbing against a wall, mascara sluicing in black tributaries as she erupted in accusations sharp enough to draw blood. All of this, was because Eric could not let history rest, because Ridge had not noticed the woman who had steadied his every professional triumph, had allowed her to spiral alone while he reviewed photo proofs with Brooke under designer track lighting. Guilt detonated behind Ridge's ribs, each step toward the ICU a descent into measuring every casual text he had overlooked, every voicemail he had hurried past, because Brooke was waiting to discuss neckline revisions. He entered the glass cubicle where Taylor lay intubated, skin yellowed by renal distress, eyelids fluttering like paper against a storm, and the sight shredded whatever defense remained. Because the woman he once crossed oceans to rescue now teetered between worlds 10 miles from his office, and he had not felt the shift. Eric arrived moments later, face gray as winter stone, and the tableau of grief forced him to confront the unintended carnage of meddled love. His dream of nostalgic reunion, now ringing hollow in the hiss of a ventilator. Outside, interns speculated about anaphylaxis, critical care nurses prepped crash carts, renal fellows debated peritoneal versus hemodialysis, while the attending shook his head, citing systolic numbers crumbling below 50. Pulse threads barely findable, lactic acidosis, multi-organ failure looming. Night thickened, fluorescent lights painting everyone in weary monochrome, and still Steffy sat at Taylor's side, hand entwined around a mother's palm that blazed with fever yet felt impossibly distant, whispering promises that grandchildren would need her, that Kelly would weave daisies in her hair again on the beach, please merging with desolate apologies for every teenage argument, for every time she chose career headlines over Sunday brunch. Ridge hovered opposite, voice hoarse, confessing regrets how he had assumed Taylor's resilience was infinite, how he had let Eric's gentle pressure and Brooke's familiar gravity blind him, how he had been so concerned with recapturing a legendary romance that he forgot the flesh-and-blood love still fighting beside him, how he feared that the next hour might steal the chance to tell her none of that distance meant indifference, that her laughter had been the compass of his better days. Monitors shrilled at 3:27 a.m., map diving, an arterial line spurting crimson, code team rushing in, Ridge and Steffy hauled backward by orderly hands while epinephrine pushed, chest compressions hammered. Epigastric area bloated with fluid no failing kidney could expel. 15 minutes stretched elastic, and when a pulse returned it was the faintest flicker, but enough for Dr. Martin to clear a path to the ICU dialysis bay where an ultrafiltration machine waited like a last-chance oracle. Ridge signed consent with shaking pen strokes. Steffy clung to him. Tears and rage melded into necessity, and Eric, in the corridor outside, pressed knuckles to lips shocked pale. Realizing the architecture of reconciliation he had so lovingly drafted might now become the blueprint of a tragedy none of them could rebuild from. As first light bruised the horizon pink, the dialysis began, blood cycling through plastic tubing in rhythmic surges, and the room pulsed with a fragile suspense, nurses monitoring electrolytes, respiratory therapists tweaking ventilator settings, surgeons on standby should cardiac tamponade manifest, every beep a bargaining chip with destiny. Hours later, Steffi stepped into the cold morning air, exhaustion draped over her like lead, Ridge following, remorse carved into the lines around his eyes. And they watched sunrise ignite the city in silent acknowledgement that whatever spiritual debt this family owed had come due in Taylor's bloodstream, that love measured by nostalgia instead of presence could bankrupt the futures of everyone involved. Inside, Taylor hovered in a pharmacologic twilight, unaware of the war fought inch by inch on her behalf, yet somewhere deep in the circuitry of her struggling heart perhaps she felt the tremor of Ridge's fingers brushing her temple, heard the fissure in his voice as he begged her to stay, promised that if she returned he would shield her from every echo of abandonment, dismantle every well-meant schemes that jeopardized her peace, prioritize partnership over publicity, whisper gratitude every night until sleep found her without chemical inducement. Whether those words could traverse the ventilator's hiss and the curtain of sedation remained unknown, but for Ridge and Steffi the audition of grief had already begun. Rehearsing a life where conversation and forgiveness might one day replace the machinery's vigil, assuming the next lab draw showed creatinine trending down, assuming blood pressure stabilized, assuming the unseen damage did not outrun medicine's brave sprint. Assumptions layered atop prayers as tenuous as the early morning rays that stretched across the window, painting Taylor's still form in the palest gold, a fragile benediction over a family newly aware of how quickly even storied love can fracture and how violently absence can echo through the chambers.